Again, I apologize for each other if you hear any noises. There's some construction going on next door there. This just video, I want to do a little reading from Jean-Paul Sartre's Being and Nothingness. Normally I don't do readings without talking about it, but I just want to read part of the introduction, which is a essay on phenomenological ontology. It's a intro to the text of being and nothingness. The big things that Sartre does here is he critiques Kant's noumenon, critiques Descartes, reduces all dualisms to the infinite and the finite, and then he also says that consciousness is all consciousness of something. So I'm just going to read the ontological proof here. That's all. It's only a little bit. Being has not been given its due. We believe we had dispensed with granting transphenomenality to the being of the phenomenon, because we had discovered the transphenomenality of the being of consciousness. We are going to see, on the contrary, that this very transphenomenality requires of the being of the phenomenon. There is an ontological proof to be derived not from the reflective cogito, but from the pre-reflective being of the recipients. This we shall now try to demonstrate. All consciousness is consciousness of something. This definition of consciousness can be taken in two very distinct senses. Either we understand by this that consciousness is constituted of the being of its object, or it means that consciousness is, in its inmost nature, is a relation to a transcendent being. But the first interpretation of the formula destroys itself. To be conscious of something is to be confronted with a concrete and full presence of that which is not consciousness. Okay. Consciousness is consciousness of something. This means that transcendence is the constitutive structure of consciousness. That is, that consciousness is born supported by a being of that which is not itself. This is what we call the ontological proof. No doubt someone will reply that the existence of a domain of consciousness does not prove that this domain ought to be satisfied. But this objection cannot hold up against of what Husserl calls intentionality. Though to be sure, he misunderstood its essential character. To say that consciousness is consciousness of something means that for consciousness there is no being outside of that precise obligation to be a revealing intuition of something, i.e. of a transcendent being. Not only does pure subjectivity, if initially given, fail to transcend itself to posit the objective, a pure subjectivity disappears. What can probably be called subjectivity is consciousness of consciousness. But this consciousness of being consciousness must be qualified in some way, and it can be qualified only as revealing intuition or as nothing. To say that consciousness is consciousness of something is to say that it must produce itself as a revealed revelation of a being which is not it, and which gives itself as already existing when consciousness reveals it. Thus we have left pure appearance and have arrived at full being. Consciousness is a being whose existence posits its essence, and inversely it is consciousness of a being whose essence implies its existence, that is, in which appearance lays claim to being. Being is everywhere. Certainly we could apply to consciousness the definition which Heidegger reserves for Dasein, and say that it is a being such that in its being is in question. But it would be necessary to complete the definition and formulate it more like this. Consciousness is a being such that in its being is in question insofar as this being implies a being other than itself. Thanks. I just wanted to do this little reading thing because it's very interesting to think about. Thinking about Husserl and Heidegger, and then what Sartre has to say here.